Alrighty, it looks like we're live for a second time. Hopefully this was working well. Team, if you're tuning in, please let me know via comment if this is working okay. We had a little bit of an issue on Last Properties and Beers, and my team said, "Hey, Goro, you didn't sound that great." Turns out my microphone was all funny buggers, and it sounded like R2D2 was speaking to you at Properties and Beers instead of myself. And so hopefully it works fine. Let's deliver this amazing content today. Look, I came online because I felt the stuff that we had today was really important for you to know. And so welcome back. And before I get started, though, I want to make sure that the audio is good. So Adam, thank you for letting me know my content is live and it's working well. So let's talk about property. Let's talk about property, the get rich quick, slow scheme, and why I believe it's still the smartest one around. So look, welcome everyone. Welcome to another round of Properties and Beers. I'm Gaurav Gupta, the founder of Ethical Property Investments. And today we're here to talk about how everydays can invest ethically, earn sustainably, without losing their mind or their money. So crack on open, because this might just be one of the most profitable beers you've had all week. Now, today I'm not doing a beer. I am doing something different. It's a whiskey. It is Paul John Indian Single Malt Whiskey, the Nirvana edition, which is pretty interesting, right? It's a produce of Goa, and it has apparently a whiff of bourbon, fruitcake, and an enticing caramel pudding. Now, I will give it a sip, and this is my second drink, so maybe I did this to get an excuse to have a second drink. Now, definitely doesn't bite you back like some of the more arboreal whiskies that you see in Scotland, but also does have enough of a bite, and it's not as sweet as it sounded. It sounded like it was going to be really sweet, but it actually is quite a muted flavor throughout them, and it is quite nice. Let's be honest. Who would have thought Indian whiskey single malt would be quite delicious? Now, if you're watching this, come say hi. Drop a line in the comments. I'd love to hear more from you. So let's chat about what Properties and Beers really is. It's unfiltered content straight from my brain and my heart to your screens. So sometimes I might make mistakes, but hey, that's kind of part of being human, right? So there's a lot of noise out there about what makes a smart property move. Tonight, I want to slow things down and share what's actually working out there, what we're seeing truly works. So before we get started, let's kick it off with a question. What if your next property outperformed your 9 to 5? That's not clickbait, that's cash flow. Look, I've seen properties bring in more income than the owners themselves. And that's not a fluke, it's actually a strategy. Then here's the thing, right? Let's put a case study together. If your job pays you $120,000, imagine earning that same amount from one property in a single year. Now, that's exactly what happened with a client of mine recently. Less than 12 months in, his property had grown by more than his annual income. Crazy, right? And that, my friends, is mindset. That's the belief in the power of property. Something my dad actually instilled in me when I was 16. He taught me the power of the long game. He taught me that property wasn't about hype. It was about holding patience and picking the right thing at the right time. Now, before we get started about your house is earning more than you, I think it's really important that we give this delicious whiskey another sip. Now, here's something a lot of people don't realize. Your home could actually earn more than you this year if you buy it right. Most people think their job is their main income, but what if your home was actually the breadwinner? And by the way, I have a challenge convincing business owners that this could be the truth. Look, here's the thing. You don't need 10 properties. We used to be called 10 properties in 10 years, but I changed that because I realized we don't need 10 properties. You don't need them. You just need 1 or 2 or 3 great properties that can take care of you for life. Now, this isn't, this is about identifying properties that aren't just nice. They're designed to generate income. That's the get rich slow approach, steady, strategic, scalable. So you combine income and cash flow, income through cash flow, as well as capital growth, and that combined can earn you more than your actual income. Think about it, right? So we aren't talking about flipping houses or chasing trends. It's about owning something that builds your freedom month after month or month. And once you understand what a smart property can do, something just clicks and it feels right. And I walked you through earlier how one single property purchase bought well could out-earn the salary like it did for my friend during the financial year. And one home bought well could out-earn your salary during this financial year. That is the power of doing the right thing in the right space. And we'll share more about some of those examples a little bit later. But before I go further, I think it's really important that we have another sip. Ladies and gents, it's really important that you keep yourself hydrated this weekend. So I'm going to get started early on your behalf. Cheers, guys. Now, let's talk about why we share what works. You probably noticed, especially recently, I've been sharing a hell of a lot more of it lately, right? Short video, reels, and the works. There's a reason for that. Look, here's the thing. When my dad first tried to learn about property investing, it cost him the equivalent of over $100,000 in today's money. That's educational alone, just to learn what we now give away effectively freely. I honestly believe that good information shouldn't be locked behind paywalls. If it can help someone grow, it should be shared. And that's why you'll find our content on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and hey, even TikTok, right? Not because we're chasing likes, but because someone out there might need one reel just to shift their future. And once you've figured some of this stuff out, I think it's your job to turn around and help the next person up. That's right. Give them the hand up. Or as I like to say, raise the commonwealth of our country and our people. I get messages every day from some of the reels we share and say, hey, Gordon, that was really inspiring. What other information can you share? What content do you have? And that's really important because, I don't believe that we should pay $50,000, $100,000 for content. We should democratize this content once we reach a certain level of wealth. Now, here's the before I get into what the RBA did this week, quite cheekily, I'm going to have another cheeky sip. So let's chat about the RBA pause and why it matters. A lot of people were hoping for rate cuts this month, but the RBA officially hit pause. That's right. There were 6 for and I think 3 against, right? There was no cut, no hike, just a pause. And that says something, right? It says that the RBA don't believe we're out of the woods yet. I believe differently. But here's the thing. In times like these, it's not about waiting for the perfect market. It's about making good moves in this market. Look, you can't time perfection, but I believe you can time preparedness. If you've got a high cash flow strategy and a solid structure, this pause could actually work in your favor, right? This is where long-term investors quietly win while short-term investors sit still. And here's the thing, right? Smart property plays are made between the moves, not just when the headlines break. Here's an interesting stat, right? Some of my clients have made more money in the last 6 months when the headlines were screaming the negative news, especially about Melbourne and Victoria. When speakers were saying, hey, invest in Perth, Adelaide, Queensland, anywhere but Victoria, these guys were banking their future. And some of them, in fact, I was speaking to a client the other day who'd made over $100,000 in the last 3 months in equity growth on his property. And of course, I'm going to say results aren't typical, et cetera, yada, yada. The truth is the truth, though. The results are the results. And that's some of the results my clients are being able to achieve. And look, I'm not going to say it's going to grow to 400,000 in the next year, but I'm giving you an example. That was a smart property purchase at an underpriced point in time. And there are areas and pockets that are still underpriced. There are people who can educate you on where to buy these underpriced properties, not just by myself, but there is others out there as well. And I believe if you're, and I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, if you're looking at purchasing property that's a house and land package, so to speak, what happens is that Someone's already bought your overpriced land and they put an overpriced house on and saying, here's a nice funky package for you. We don't do packages. What I believe we should do is do something bespoke, something really custom. Say, hey, I believe this land is underpriced. If we put this positively geared property on there, you should be able to make a lot of future wealth happen for you. And look, 9 out of 10 times, that's accurate. That's what happens. That's based on experience because, hey, when we first started, it was 2 out of 10, right? So we've learned over the years. We've educated ourselves both through what's out there and from experience. And so, between Dad and I, where we've purchased over 40 properties in our past, we've realized what works and doesn't work, right? Now, before I get started on the next part, I have another sip, is that we're going to put co-living on trial, right? So July the 15th, which is next Tuesday. Here's the thing. One of the biggest things I've been asked about lately is co-living. It's bold, it's different, and it's not for everyone. We started our co-living journey and educating ourselves on co-living almost a decade ago, and we've learned a hell of a lot of things about what works, what doesn't work, and what people should invest in ideally. In fact, we had a client webinar just for our internal clients where they were saying co-living is safer. Get this right. The client said co-living was safer than investing in a regular property. That's what our clients were saying. And some of them actually said, hey, I want to invest in nothing but co-living for the rest of my property journey. And that's a cool situation, right? That tells you that it's working, right? So here's the thing. We're going to do something that we've never done before. We've got something a little bit different coming up. A webinar where co-living really goes on trial and you get to be the judge and the jury. So we're going to be unpacking real numbers, real risk, real stories of wins and losses. And here's the thing, right? I've seen co-living work incredibly well. I've also seen it being misused and fail in some cases. So what we're going to do, we're going to lay it all out on the table, no spin, just the facts, what works, what doesn't work. And here's the thing, if you've been sitting on the fence, this is your moment to get off it, because the only thing you get from sitting on the fence are splinters, as I say on my webinar, right? Now, here's the thing, Tuesday, July 15th, we've got the property courtroom, co-living on trial. This is not the mushroom trial, this is co-living on trial. See if it's worthwhile, see if it is guilty or not guilty, right? We're going to put a link to register in the comments. Team, make sure you can put a link to register in the comments. And before I go into my closing thoughts, I'm going to have a sip because we've got to finish this glass, right? Almost done. Here are some of my closing thoughts. This isn't about hype. During Properties and Beers, we give you the tools to make better decisions. Whether you're buying your first place or your 10th, the goal doesn't change. It's about learning something, sharing something, taking one step closer to the life you actually want to build. Look, here's the thing. You don't need to be rich to invest, but you need to be willing to think differently. You need to be willing to go against the grain. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, under Ethical Property Investments, even LinkedIn under my personal name. Keep learning, growing, and investing smarter. Do good and make money, repeat, and cheers, guys. Have a fantastic weekend and have a fantastic time.